The sterile lights of the diplomatic chamber cast harsh shadows across William's face as he stood before the crystalline throne. His hand unconsciously moved to his left temple, fingers tracing the jagged scar that ran from his hairline to his cheekbone, a mark he'd carried for 12 years, though he could never remember how he'd gotten it. The Velkari delegation had arrived on Earth 3 weeks ago, their massive bioships darkening the skies over Geneva. They came not as conquerors but as cautious allies, bearing technology that could solve humanity's energy crisis and cure diseases that had plagued the species for centuries. In return, they wanted only one thing: access to Earth's historical records and permission to study human neural patterns. William Chen, a xenolinguist specializing in nonverbal communication systems, had been assigned to the diplomatic team almost by accident. His unique ability to read microexpressions and body language made him invaluable in first-contact scenarios, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this moment. The alien queen, though queen was an inadequate translation of her actual title, something closer to memory keeper or consciousness anchor, rose from her throne. She was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Her body seemed to shift between states of matter, sometimes solid and bipedal, sometimes flowing like living mercury. Bioluminescent patterns rippled across her form, a language more ancient than words. Her name, as close as human vocal cords could approximate, was Maya. "The human delegation may approach," her translator device announced, though William could sense the words were a pale shadow of her actual communication. The Velkari spoke in quantum harmonics, each syllable existing in multiple states simultaneously until observed. William stepped forward with his team: Dr. Sarah Okoro, the mission commander, Lieutenant James Park, their security liaison, and Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the team's theoretical physicist. But as they approached, Maya's luminescent patterns suddenly froze. The chamber, which had been filled with the ambient hum of alien technology, fell silent. Her eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangular pattern on what might be called her face, fixed on William with an intensity that made his scar burn. He gasped, hand flying to his temple. "Wait," Maya said, her voice bypassing the translator entirely and resonating directly in their minds. "That one, bring him closer." Dr. Okoro hesitated. "Your Majesty, our protocol." Now, the command carried the weight of eons. William felt his legs moving before his mind could process the decision. He walked forward alone, leaving the safety of his team, until he stood mere feet from the alien queen. This close, he could see that her form wasn't random, patterns repeated, fractals within fractals, each one encoding information in ways human science was only beginning to understand. Maya descended from her throne, and William realized she was adjusting her physical form to match his height. A gesture of respect, intimacy, he couldn't be sure. "Your scar," she said, her mental voice softer now, touched with something that sounded impossibly like wonder. "May I?" William nodded, not trusting his voice. A tendril of her essence, solid yet yielding, warm yet cool, extended toward his face. The moment she touched his scar, the world exploded into light. He was 12 years old, running through the woods behind his grandmother's house in Oregon. The year was 2157, and he'd snuck out to watch the meteor shower everyone was talking about. But these weren't meteors. The pods fell like silver rain, most burning up in the atmosphere. But one, just one, crashed in the clearing ahead. Young William approached cautiously, his tablet ready to record what he assumed would be an interesting rock formation. The pod was organic, pulsing with faint light. As he drew closer, it cracked open and something emerged. Not fully formed, not yet the magnificent creature she would become. A Velkari child, injured and afraid. She was dying. William could see that even at 12. Her bioluminescence was flickering, her form unstable. In that moment, armed with nothing but a child's courage and a first aid kit designed for humans, William did the only thing he could think of. He shared his water. He wrapped her in his jacket. He spoke to her in soft, comforting tones, even though she couldn't possibly understand. And when her tendril lashed out in pain and fear, slicing his temple open, he didn't run. He stayed. For 3 hours he stayed with her in that clearing, losing blood, growing weak, but refusing to abandon her. He sang her the songs his grandmother had taught him. He told her about Earth, about humans, about hope. When the Velkari recovery ship finally arrived, so fast, so silent, they found a human child unconscious from blood loss, cradling one of their own. The extraction team faced a dilemma. Human authorities would ask questions about the boy's injuries. Witnesses would compromise their reconnaissance mission. So they did what they had to do. They healed his wound mostly and erased his memories of that night, a small price for the girl's life. They left him in his bed, safe, with only a scar that wouldn't heal quite right, a mark their technology couldn't fully erase because it was mixed with their own biology, their own essence. The girl they saved was Maya, and she remembered everything. The vision faded. William gasped, stumbling backward. His team rushed forward, but Maya raised a hand, stopping them with a gesture. "So it was you," she said, her voice breaking with emotion that transcended species. "After all these years." Tears streamed down William's face as the memories flooded back, not implanted but unlocked. 12 years of questions answered in an instant. The nightmares he could never explain. The inexplicable affinity for xenobiology. The way he'd always felt like something was missing, some connection severed. "You were just a child," William whispered. I thought I dreamed it all." Maya's form shimmered, and for a moment he saw her as she'd been that night, small, vulnerable, afraid. "I was dying. My pod's navigation failed. I should have burned up in your atmosphere, but I didn't. And when I crashed, injured and alone, a human child found me. Not a scientist, not a soldier, a child who chose compassion over fear." Dr. Tanaka's voice cracked through the moment. "The energy signatures we detected in your scar tissue, they're Velkari biomarkers. Your DNA has been partially rewritten." "That's why they couldn't fully erase the memory," Maya explained. "When my tendril cut you, we became connected. A part of my genetic code merged with yours. I've carried your pattern in my consciousness ever since, searching for you through every diplomatic channel, every human database. I've waited 12 years to thank you." "Thank me?" William laughed, the sound halfway between joy and disbelief. "You're a queen. I'm just a linguist who got lucky with an assignment." "You're the reason I'm alive," Maya said simply. "And you're the reason I convinced my people to make contact with Earth. I've spent a dozen years studying your species, William. I needed to understand what kind of world could produce a child who would risk his life for an alien creature he'd never seen before." Lieutenant Park spoke up, his tactical mind already working. "This changes the diplomatic dynamic entirely, if humanity saved the Velkari Queen." "No," Maya's voice was firm. "This changes nothing politically. This is personal, but William." She turned back to him, her patterns shifting to colors he instinctively understood meant affection, gratitude, joy. "I wanted you to know. I needed you to know. That night in the forest, you showed me that consciousness, compassion, and courage aren't bound by species. You're why I believe our peoples can coexist." William touched his scar again, but now it didn't burn. It tingled with warmth, with recognition. "What happens now?" "Now," Maya's laugh was like music in his mind. "Now we negotiate a treaty, we share our technologies, we build a future, but first," she extended her hand in a very human gesture. "First, I'd like to properly meet the boy who saved my life. Will you tell me your story, William Chen, all of it?" William took her hand, solid and real and impossible. Around them, the diplomatic chamber hummed back to life. Dr. Akoro was already on comms, reporting this development to Earth. Dr. Tanaka was frantically taking readings. Lieutenant Park looked ready to write a security report that would take weeks to finish. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Two children who'd met in a forest clearing 12 years ago were finally reunited. One human, one alien, both forever changed by a moment of compassion that had literally rewritten their DNA. "I'd like that," William said, smiling through his tears. "I'd like that very much." And as Maya's bioluminescent patterns danced with joy, William realized his scar had never been just a scar. It had been a promise, a connection that transcended species, time, and the vastness of space itself. After all these years, he'd finally come home. And